Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the podcast you come to when you're finally ready to take fantasy hockey seriously. My name is Nathan Groot Nibbelink. I am the creator of Apples and Ginos, originator of Zero G Draft Strategy, and in this podcast, I am going to break down the most puzzling players league-wide as determined by the Apples and Ginos Discord server. Let's get it. Welcome on in, everyone, to another wonderful Monday of hockey and fantasy hockey. As a result, we've got lots of good stuff going on. This Buffalo-Florida game is a little drunk, and I'm here for that. It's a good time. Enjoying the Rasmus Dahlin share that I have currently. That's looking pretty good right about now, but it is going to be a weird week. We only get a few days of games here before the Olympic break, and then we have to wait a long time for NHL hockey again. I don't think we're going to be too mad about it with the Olympics to satiate us, but yeah, it is going to throw some wrenches into our plans for fantasy purposes. So that's what we're here to do tonight. We are here to talk about some puzzling players. We're here to figure out what to do with this craziness. In the comments, T-Dubs here. Cheers, Nate. Let's get it. Hashtag 0G from Dynasty Dave. Good to see ya. And PB Stars in here with the What Up Goat. Appreciate everybody joining. Florida Man Penguin fan. Hey, Nate. Thoughts on Fantilli? Let's start it out with some Adam Fantilli. I'm not opposed to that off the rip. Adam Fantilli, 5 points, 1 goal in his last 5, just under 19 minutes average time on ice, 222nd shots per 60, 166 individual expected goals for per 60, and 180 in on ice expected goals for per 60. It's not the greatest numbers that Fantilli's put on the board in a 5-game stretch this year. On the season, numbers are a lot better. The average time on ice is about the same, but 60th in shots per 60, 85th individual expected goals for per 60, and 77th in on ice expected goals for per 60. Fantilli still playing with Marchenko and Marchment in the last game, and with those two as well on the top power play. And, you know, they've done some winning with that, but they did change it up in practice today. Fantilli and Marchment were together, but it was Lundestrom joining them up there. I think that is just because Marchenko missed the practice today with an illness. It looks like the other lines kind of stayed the same, so that makes you think that it's just because of the illness for Marchenko and they're not actually trying to shake up the lines. So I think that we're going to get more of the same, and that's a pretty good spot for Fantilli to do his thing. It's annoying that his underlyings are not so hot right now in the last 5 games here, but on the whole, I think he deserves some positive regression. The 9% shooting percentage, the 10.7% on ice shooting percentage, 57% IPP, and I mean, he's getting that right now, 5 points in the last 5 games, as I mentioned. So I like Fantilli. The last little stretch is not great. I want to see it bounce back. I think it will, honestly. I think this is probably just a little stretch where the puck was going in for them as a line, and so maybe there's a slight corresponding dip in the underlying numbers there. But obviously, over time, you want to see that bounce up and get the best of both worlds where you're getting the counting stats and you're getting the underlying stats as well. So good stuff from Fantilli on the score sheet. Not so great on the underlying stats. Something to keep an eye on for sure, but as long as he's getting line 1, power play 1 with Marchenko alongside him, I'm going to be pretty excited about his ceiling rest of season. All right, the most requested player by the Apples and Ginos Discord server was Moritz Seider, who has 3 assists in his last 5 games here. Now, Seider has skated almost 28 minutes a night in the last 5 games, so it's not for a lack of minutes that he has gone goalless here in this stretch, but it's, I I mean, it's not great. 99th shots per 60, 90th individual expected goals for per 60, 38th and on ice expected goals for per 60 is pretty solid stuff. But yeah, it's not what you were hoping for in the last little bit from Moritz Seider. Having said that, Seider's had a terrific season, ranks really highly in just about every format because of his multicat contributions. He has not scored a goal since December 28th, so over a month now, which is probably contributing to some fantasy managers, wow, can't speak. Fantasy managers' consternation with him as of late. He is still on a 10 goal, 54-point pace. Those would be career numbers for Moritz Seider. 40% IPP, 5.9% shooting percentage, 12% on ice shooting percentage. Honestly, I kind of feel like this is maybe just a bit of who Mo Seider is. I think he's a little bit more defense first than offense forward, and I think the Wings are pretty okay with that. I am tempted to just say he is what he is. Now, the weird part of this, obviously, is that there's been some experimentation. I didn't see what exactly happened with these power play lines in this game against the Avalanche there. Maybe somebody in the comments did, but I did see that Gustafsson got some time with the top unit. Seider got some time there too as well. Gustafsson did play on the second unit with ASP, and so, well, actually, they kind of just messed it all up because they ran JVR, Larkin, Raymond with Gustafsson, Sandy, and Pellica, it looks like. So I don't know exactly what went on in this game, and probably something I'm going to have to dig into and actually figure out. Seider has been on power play 1 for what, like 90% of the year. I don't think that's going to necessarily change. I don't think Gustafsson is the guy to unseat him. I think even if this is a case where they give Gustafsson a look or even ASP a look, like we actually saw it earlier this year where they gave ASP a look on the top power play. That lasted like 2 games, and then it was right back to Seider. I think it'll be more of the same here. I'm not too concerned about the power play role going away from Moritz Seider. I just think that he's not the most skilled offensive defenseman in the league. He's plenty skilled, just not the most. And so, yeah, 10 goal, 54-point pace on the season. I kind of feel like that's pretty close to what we should expect from Seider. Could he get hot and go larger than this, get a little hot with the IPP or something like that? Definitely. That's definitely possible. But I don't think you should necessarily bank on it. And yeah, like the shooting percentage is getting back to in line with where it's been in previous years. And so I kind of think you're just getting some natural regression now to the point where he kind of is a little bit closer where we thought he would be at the start of the season. I think I had him maybe a little bit below or right on 50 points. Now I'm going to have to look it up because I brought it up. This is how my brain works. If I bring it up, I got to look it up. So here we are. Where's Detroit at on the sheet? We have Moritz Seider I had for bang on 50 points. Yeah, I'm remembering that correctly. 9 goal, 41 assist, 50-point pace on the season is what I had him for, averaging 25.5 minutes average time on ice, which is exactly where he's at on the season now. Yeah, so I think it's kind of coming pretty close to where I thought he'd be. I had him at a 5.5% shooting percentage. He's at 5.9 now on the season. This is getting pretty close to exactly what I thought Moritz Seider was going to be at the beginning of the season. So I think, yeah, I'm pretty happy to hold him here. I spent a lot of time on Seider there, but I wanted to because he was the most requested player. I know people get nervous when there are weird power play things going on and the player that they're rostering gets off the top power play even for a few minutes here or there. So wanted to shout that out there. Uvis Balenskis just scored in this Florida Buffalo game. Wow. What a name. What a player. All right, let's continue on. Roman Josi next up. 2 goals, 5 points in his last 5. Almost, over 29 minutes average time on ice. Terrific stuff. 21st in shots per 60, 22nd in individual expected goals for per 60, 5th in on ice expected goals for per 60 for Josi amongst all defensemen in the last 5 games. With 42 games to his credit this year, he is on a 20 goal, 64.82 game pace. 7th in shots per 60, 6th individual expected goals for per 60, 15th on ice expected goals for per 60. I had posited at the beginning of the year that I was concerned about the POTS diagnosis, that this could be something that might affect him throughout the year. I didn't really change my projection on him too much because of it, because yeah, how would you know how to like bake that into an average projection? And so my projection still came out to Yossi at a 66 point pace, and obviously he's pretty close to that as an 82 game pace here. I think that I'm pretty impressed with what we've seen out of Yossi, honestly, after what last year was, after working through all of that. I think he's come back in a big way. Obviously, Nashville had big struggles earlier on in the year, and he's been very hot since. And at this point, I think I would probably expect that to continue. I honestly think he could trend more towards like a 70, even 75 point pace rest of season if Nashville as a team is able to keep this up a bit more. You're seeing the forwards do more of the work than they had done in the last couple of years here. And so that's obviously a good sign for Yossi, and he's getting his piece of that as well, his piece of the pie as well. So it's pretty much all signs are go for Roman Yossi at the moment, and you love to see it. Jimmy Snuggles making the list here. People want to know what to do, what to expect from Mr. Snuggles rest of season. Fair points as a rookie in the league. It's tough to get a read on these kinds of players. He has 2 goals, 6 points in his last 5, over 17 minutes average time on ice. At the beginning of the year, I had him pegged at a 16-goal, 44-point pace. And at this point in the season, he's on a 17-goal, 40-point pace in the 43 games he's played. So getting pretty close there. He's in this last 5 games, 126th in shots per 60, 89th individual expected goals for per 60, and 119th in on ice expected goals for per 60. So some pretty solid stuff here from Jimmy Snuggerud. I like how much Jim Montgomery likes Jimmy Snuggerud. That's a big piece for me. I think that he's probably not going to be a guy with a massive shooting percentage at the end of the day. Just looking back to some of his college days here, trying to do some quick mental math. But yeah, he shot like just under 15% his final year at college. And so generally, it's never exactly a one-to-one linear comparison, but generally guys who shoot at a higher percentage in college or in any lower tier of hockey that they played before making the jump to the NHL, if they shoot out for a low percentage in college or any other tier, then they'll shoot for a lower percentage, probably lower yet, in the NHL. So Snuggerud shooting for about 15% in college. You might expect him to be a little bit lower than that. And on the season so far, he's run even colder, 9.7%. I think he can be like a 12 to 15% shooter. 15% is probably towards the high end of what you might expect given that college profile. But the chance generation is really solid on a St. Louis team that's been pretty uneven in terms of their chance generation. And he's hot right now. Now, as a rookie, you've heard me say this a million times if you've listened to the pod for any length of time, very unpredictable. Rookies are some of the most unpredictable fantasy assets that you can have on your team. They tend to vary more than other players. I expect the same will be true of Snuggerud throughout the rest of the season. But I do think that there's also a ceiling case. Like Seneca is a guy that I talked about. I expected him to have some ups and downs, but really he's just trended up over the course of the season. And of course, there are exceptions to every rule, and Seneca has proven that this year so far anyway. And I think Snuggerud could be another exception, but it's probably not what you want to bet on. So I don't think you should make any permanent plans about Jimmy Snuggerud, but I do think that there is potential here for him to pace rest of season at a 60-plus point pace. I don't think the ceiling is likely to be much higher than that unless he really gets run as like 19-plus minutes a night, full line 1 treatment, full power play 1 treatment, that kind of thing, which is pretty unlikely, I think, for the Blues, unless, they do some sort of fire sale of the rest of their lineup and Snuggerud is all that's left on the team. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with Snuggerud at the moment. I think there's a lot of potential here, but I would preach some caution just given it's a rookie player and not the best situation in the NHL. It's a decent enough one, but it's not the best. And so, yeah, some caution, but some optimism as well for Jimmy Snuggles. Philip Forsberg, next up here, he has a goal, 4 points in his last 5, over 19 minutes a night, 27 shots per 60, 38th individual expected goals for per 60, 7th in on ice expected goals for per 60. Really good stuff there. He does have a power play assist in the game here so far. And yeah, I think that Forsberg is all the way back here. I think I said a goal and 4 points. That's actually 3 goals and 4 points in the last 5 games here for Forsberg. I read that backwards. There was a point not that long ago that his underlying numbers were not looking that great, but they've bounced right back. His numbers on the season look terrific, as they usually do. I think his current 33 goal, 65 point pace that he's on for the season will probably trend even more positively from here on out, similar to what I said about Roman Josi. I think he can shoot more than the 13.4% that he's currently shooting. I think the on-ice shooting percentage at 10.4 can definitely trend up higher. Like Josi's at 11.6. I think Forsberg should be able to hit at least that. So I think there's actually a lot of headroom here for Forsberg to hit a 75-ish point pace rest of season, especially if this 19 plus a minute a night treatment holds up. And it seems to be working for them right now. He's been playing a lot with Ryan O'Reilly atop the lineup, and that's really working for them. I expect that to continue unless they start to get into trades and whatnot. Barry Trotz announcing his retirement at the end of the season here today. I don't know if that really changes the outlook in terms of what they might do or not do at the trade deadline or anything like that, but as of right now, I feel pretty confident in what Philip Forsberg offers for rest of season. Mason Marchment, 4 goals, 5 points in the last 5 games. Of course, most of that came in that hat-trick game. Just under 18 minutes average time on ice, 204 shots per 60, 279 individual expected goals for per 60, 206 in on ice expected goals for per 60. He's not been on the top power play for all of this, so that explains a little bit of it, but it's fair to say, I think, that it hasn't been, outside of maybe that one game, it hasn't been the smoothest of sailing on that top line, but it really does seem like Bonus is committed to giving it a good try. The Blue Jackets are winning with Marchment on that line, with Marchenko and Fantilli, so as long as that continues, I'm going to remain bullish on Marchment, just because, I mean, we've seen this guy have a great season in the past. If he's going to be treated as a line 1 power play 1 asset, wouldn't be surprising to me if he has another great end to the season here, and that's something that I can get excited about for fantasy purposes. So, if the deployment changes, I wouldn't hesitate to move off of Marchment, but while he's here, I'm pretty into it. Dylan Guenther, a couple of assists in the last 3 games for him. Had that injury that caused him to miss a little bit of time. 17 minutes average time on ice. I'm not going to read too much into his recent stats here, but on the season, terrific stuff. 6th in shots per 60, 25th individual expected goals for per 60, 47th on ice expected goals for per 60. He's been the guy that they've just moved down the lineup to help get some secondary scoring basically out of other lines, and he's been able to do it. Just tremendous stuff. 37 goal, 70 point pace in the 53 games that he's played on the year. Playing with Michael Carconi, the Italian Stallion, as Blake likes to call him, and Jack McBain. So that's obviously not a great spot for even strength production, but Guenther, I think, is elite enough to make it work. 71% IPP. It really feels like he's kind of come into his own this year. I would love to see him, get a full complement, 19 plus minutes, as I've talked about with some other players here. I would love to see what that looks like for Dylan Guenther, because I do think this is a guy who could tickle 50 goals in a season if given all of the above in terms of deployment and line mates and everything. So I'd love to see it. I don't think we're going to get it this year, especially since they've been having some recent success going this route with the lines. That being said, I think that this is probably where Guenther lives most likely in this 37 goal, 70 point pace range that he's on currently. I think that's probably where he lives. I think there's still some headroom, though. Given the deployment here, I don't think it gets much worse for Guenther in terms of deployment, and so if it gets better, then that could be even better for fantasy. So obviously, still pretty in on Dylan Guenther. Darren Radish, unbelievable. This guy just keeps filling the net. 4 goals, 7 points in his last 5 games, over 26.5 minutes average time on ice, 3rd in shots per 60, 5th in individual expected goals for per 60, 11th in on ice expected goals for per 60 on the season. A 28 goal, 85 point pace, 5th in shots per 60, 7th individual expected goals for per 60, 5th on ice expected goals for per 60, 59% IPP, 12.9% shooting percentage, 13.8% on ice shooting percentage. All of that's super high, but the underlying numbers are so good here as well. Big minutes. Hedman has come back, but I think that at least for the next little bit, they're going to slow play him a lot, and Radish just continues to rack it up. I don't see how Radish is going to come off the top power play unit. Even like this top pairing usage, if it's working, like why would they put so much stress on Hedman if they don't need to? They're doing well in the playoff race. I just don't see an immediate reason why they would move away from Darren Radish when things are going so well. Now, that being said, there is some obvious signs of regression in the luck metrics here, the IPP, the shooting percentage, the on-ice shooting percentage. I think he is definitely in a position there in Tampa Bay as the trigger man on that power play, getting sweet passes from Kucherov all the time, where he can be a guy who is just really efficient, but this is probably a little bit beyond even just really efficient. This is probably into fully unsustainable territory. But honestly, like, even when he gets that regression, what is he coming down to? Like a 20 goal, 70 point pace rest of season instead of a 28 goal, 85 point pace? Sure. Still, you would sign up for that right now. So big fan of Darren Radish. I don't see it going away anytime soon. Even when it regresses, the underlyings are so good here. It would take something pretty wild for it to change significantly in my mind. The other side of that coin is Victor Hedman. He returns for this outdoor game. Obviously, great story for the Lightning, and he gets a few games here to get himself back in shape for the Olympics. He only plays 10 minutes, 18 seconds in this game. They're obviously slow playing him. Outdoor rink, weird ice. You don't want to take any chances with a guy who's dealt with the same injury twice already this year. Makes total sense. I don't think they're going to overplay him in the final 2 games they have this week. They play Tuesday and Thursday this week. They're going to play Florida on Thursday, and we all know what Tampa Bay, Florida games have been like this year. Again, I don't think they're going to overplay Hedman in that game and let Florida just take a bunch of runs at him. I don't think that's going to happen. So yeah, I just expect that'll be kind of a slow play for Hedman coming back into things before the Olympic break here. After the Olympic break is where we'll really see what they want to do with him. My expectation at this point, like I said, with Radish, why would they change something that's working so well? I expect Radish and Moser to continue to play more top pair of minutes, even at even strength, and Hedman to just be used as a really, really good kind of second pair guy, a guy to hold leads, stuff like that. So I think it'll be over the 20-minute mark, but maybe not by a whole lot in terms of his average time on ice after the Olympic break. And that'll probably lead him into a 40-ish point pace rest of season. So rosterable for fantasy, I think, definitely. But definitely, that power play is where you make all the bacon in Tampa, and he's not going to be there if Radish continues this torrid pace. So for now, at least, I think Hedman is more of a back end of your roster kind of defenseman, which is unfortunate for Hedman rosters, but that is where we are at the moment. All right. Let's get back to some comments here. T-Dub. In my Keep 5 Cats League, goals, assists, power play points, shots on goal, shorthanded points, hits, and blocks, should I trade? PD, Terry, my first and third for point cutter, his 6th and 7th, trying to boost my goals. Braden Point, close to returning. He had some really great underlying metrics, especially right before he did get injured. Hopefully he's 100% and not kind of rushing back for the Olympics here, and he just comes back and crushes it. We'll get a good look at him in the Olympics, and so that should give us a pretty good indication of what to expect from him once he gets back to Tampa. This trade in particular here, I think I'm into it. Honestly, you're getting a 6th and a 7th back, which is, equal to a redraft 11th and 12th. You're trading what equals a redraft 6th and 8th. Yeah, And you're getting a pretty big upgrade in terms of rating point in Cutter Gauthier, especially if you're trying to score more goals over Elias Pettersson and Troy Terry. So I think that makes some sense to me. Points not, this isn't, necessarily points best format, but I do think that he should do a lot better than he was doing. He's going to score some shorthanded points. He's going to score some power play points. He's going to get a lot of points. I think he is going to score a lot more goals in the back half here than he was previously, and Cutter Gauthier is pretty terrific. So I think this is an upgrade for you and a decent enough one that I would make this trade. Sasha says, hello, Nate. Would you be able to look at Batherson? Feels like he's done nothing in the past 2 weeks. Batherson was one of the hottest players in fantasy earlier this year, but yeah, just 2 assists in his last 5 games here. He is skating about 16 and a half minutes average time on ice in the last little bit. The numbers aren't great here for sure. He hasn't scored a goal since January 18th. The shots have kind of come down, 297 shots per 60, 236 individual expected goals for per 60, 147 on ice expected goals for per 60 for Drake Batherson here. On the season, still a 31 goal, 74-point pace. Got a pretty high IPP. That 17.9% shooting percentage is very high as well. The on-ice shooting percentage is on the high side for sure. Probably a little unsustainable if I had to guess. Still on top power play, still doing all the normal things in terms of deployment, just a little bit less as of late than through most of the season. It's possible that Batherson is, nursing a little bit of an injury and he just needs some time, over this Olympic break to get right. That's definitely possible. Would explain a little bit of the downturn here, might explain a little bit of the lesser minutes that he's received as well in the last few games. I'm not concerned about Batherson really, as long as he's getting the deployment in the top 6 on the top power play. They do change around the lines there a lot, but not the top power play so much. He's a fixture there. I think that I'm willing to just kind of wait and see what he looks like after the Olympics, and I'm willing to give him pretty much a clean slate, especially given what he was able to put on record leading up to this point. So I'm not ready to make any proclamations on Batherson, trending downward for the rest of the year or anything. I'm basically not willing to make any major changes in my evaluation of Batherson based on even the first part of the season or the last part of the season, kind of looking at it a bit more holistically. If I look at where I was on Batherson before the season, I had him for a 26 goal, 69-point pace, which would have been pretty nice. He's on a 31 goal, 74-point pace, running a little bit hot still on the season overall, but definitely in the wheelhouse there. So he's kind of just rounding into where I thought he'd be. And yeah, I think there's still some upside from here if he's able to get hot again, to start bringing the underlying metrics back up after the Olympic break, which I think is definitely possible, especially if it is maybe just a little bit of a nagging thing that he's kind of limping into the Olympic break with here. All right, next comment. Who's a good trade target? Looking to trade away Morgan Riley or Victor Hedman in a Cats league? It's always hard to come up with trade targets on the spot, just off the dome. This is not how my brain works, so it's a tough one for me. In a Cats league, if you don't have plus minus, you could look at a guy like Justin Falk. Jacob Trouba's offense has fallen off a fair bit, but obviously still applies a bunch of peripherals, so that could be a look. Even like a Mike Matheson. I don't think you're getting Noah Dobson. He's been terrific. His blocks are off the wall lately. Even a Brant Clark might be an upgrade over those two. Those are just the guys. I'm literally just looking at a list of defensemen at Yahoo right now and trying to get some ideas together. But yeah, maybe start there with some of those names. I don't think you have to get off those players. Riley's obviously a tough roster, especially if the Leafs start to downturn even more and start to sell off. But yeah, I don't think you have to sell low either. Why is Zibby on the list? He's literally been on fire the last 2 months. I don't make the list. I just report on it. Cider is like Darren Radish, IMO, a few 3-point nights, throws the body, blocks sometimes, not consistent like a weaker in Cats. I feel like Sider's pretty consistent. He puts up huge numbers. I guess you're saying it comes in spurts a bit more than it does with Uyghur, which is maybe true. I don't roster Sider anywhere, so I haven't really paid close attention to his game-to-game numbers, maybe. But yeah, maybe that's a fair assessment in terms of the game-to-game consistency in the categories. Hey man, hope you're doing well. Got offered Brady Tkachuk and Eric Carlson for Marchand and Radish. Thoughts? This probably depends a pretty significant amount on your specific league. Like if this is Bangers Cats, then Brady Tkachuk is obviously hugely valuable there. Carlson, not so much, but I would take the best player in the deal being Brady Tkachuk. If it's more points oriented and you don't have a lot of value on peripherals, then obviously that takes a lot away from Brady Tkachuk and it starts to lean back in Darren Radish's favor and Marchand's favor. So I think this is probably format dependent for me. If it's somewhere in the middle, then it starts to just look like more of a fair trade. I think I would probably lean the Brady Tkachuk side, but yeah, it's a trade that I would categorize as highly dependent on your format. Pecora asks, hey Nate, will there be any content during the Olympic break? I'm assuming there won't be a puzzling players until the break ends. Yeah, puzzling players will definitely go on hiatus. I wouldn't hate having a break from the 3 pods a week schedule myself here. So we'll definitely be doing some pods. We'll have some Olympic content. Last year with the Four Nations, Blake and I did a live stream where we watched the Four Nations with some people live on stream, and that was fun. With the timing this year, I looked at the early games and they're all like 10 a.m. or like 2 p.m. on a Thursday kind of games. And so it might be hard for both of us to get together for one of those games, but maybe one of us could stream. There'll be some stuff. We might, just talk about the Olympics, just talk about hockey. There will be some stuff on the feed. Don't anybody worry about that. And yeah, we'll try to get the band together for a few things throughout. Yeah, maybe some of the other guys, like the Trade Talks guys, can join us. I haven't talked to them yet, but maybe some of them can join us. And we could do some live streams, hang out with the people, at least chat hockey while there's Olympic hockey going. All right. Mitchell R. Drush, how's Lafreniere looking under the hood with Panarin out of the lineup? Well, here we go. Alexis Lafreniere, he does have 4 points in the last 5 games, 16.5 minutes average time on ice, 219 shots per 60, 210 individual expected goals for per 60, 256 on ice expected goals for per 60. Yeah, not great is the short answer. The goals and assists have kind of been there in the last few games here, although actually, maybe before I say that, I should check if those goals actually came in the games without Panarin or if they came before that. Okay, so it was this last game against Pittsburgh that he had the 3 points there, which is most of it, obviously. So, nice little game there against Pittsburgh. I am honestly pretty down on Lafreniere. I think that his kind of one good year that he had where I think he paced around 60 points, 3 goals, 60 points. I think a lot of that was due to just Panarin being Panarin. And I think a lot of Lafreniere's success has come because of Panarin. Something to monitor moving forward, as obviously he's not going to play with Panarin anymore. If he's able to do some stuff on a more consistent basis, a 1-3 point game is nice, but can he start to string together more consistency, which has always been a problem for him? If he's able to do that in a little bit more of a sample size, then I'm willing to, I'm always willing to reevaluate my opinion of a player. But how many games has Alexis Lafreniere played in the NHL at this point? It's been a while, is what I think we can safely say. And Lafreniere is no longer the most recent number 1 pick. He's 24 years old. He was drafted first overall in 2020. He's played 436 career games. Starting to wonder if this is just he is who he is. And who he is a guy who's maybe streamable some weeks. All right. Next up in the comments, Rick Garcia, thought I peaked last year with picking up Lane Hudson, and then Darren Radish pops off this year. Yeah, the Darren Radish experience has been wild. Been pretty happy where I've got him. Simon says, hey, Nate, curious how you pick the sample slash stats for evaluating performance. Example, why 5-game sample instead of, say, 10? And also, what made you start evaluating players based on the metrics in the table? Great meta question. I'm always into this. So 5-game sample, I think you have to find the balance between evaluating how a player is doing right now, like in the moment, be in the moment, and also have enough of a sample size for it to actually mean something. And so that's what I'm trying to get at with the 5-game sample. There's probably a better statistically significant number of games or number of minutes that we could use. 5 has anecdotally seemed like the right number to me, and that's why I personally have started using 5 games played as my, most recent amount of games to evaluate a player by, because I do want to know how they're performing right now. And the last 5 games is basically, 2 weeks, 10 days, 12 days, kind of in that range for a lot of players because of, just how the schedule works out. Most teams play 3 games a week, sometimes 4. So you get into that kind of 10 to 14 days of hockey range. And that feels like, how is a player doing right now? Let's look back at the last 10 to 14 days. That should give us a good idea. So that's how I came to the 5-game sample and why I'm using that. In terms of the metrics that you see here, I have run some different analyses. Mark Barber, 18 Skaters, has also run some analyses on what's significant, what's statistically significant in terms of predicting player performance moving forward. Shots per 60 is obviously a good one. That's why lots of people talk about shots and it being a good a barometer for goal scoring. Makes a lot of sense. Individual scoring chances 4 per 60 on Natural Stat Trick has been a lifeline for myself because it's even more predictive than shots per 60. It's more predictive than actually their own expected goals model, which doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't know how they ended up at that place, but that's why I, in the past, had been using individual scoring chances 4 per 60 and on ice scoring chances 4 per 60 a whole lot because it was the most predictive metric that was widely available for all players on Natural Stat Trick. And so that's why I went that route. And now this year, a big improvement for us has been the individual and on ice expected goals 4 per 60 from Mark Barber's model, from 18 Skaters model. And I think that is the best expected goals model that I can get my hands on. It's really good. I've seen some of the math. I've seen how he trained it. We've talked through the process of what does and doesn't make sense. It takes into account the player's own shooting ability and those kinds of things, which is not something I've seen in other models. And when I think makes a lot of sense, like why am I evaluating Leon Draisaitl as if he is, Evan Rodriguez? These are obviously not the same in terms of shooting talent. And so it stands to reason that Leon Draisaitl's expected goals should generally be higher because he should be expected to score more goals with the same exact chances that somebody else would get. So, it's the best model that I've been able to get my hands on, and so that's why I'm using it. And I think it's been really helpful this year, and I really pay attention to when it differs from the scoring chances 4 per 60. I don't know if there's a good example on the screen right now. Yeah, like for example, Morgan Geeky, 173rd in individual scoring chances 4 per 60 or last little bit. That doesn't sound so great, but 82nd in individual expected goals 4 per 60. So there's a pretty big difference between those two numbers. And the expected goals is more predictive than the scoring chances 4 per 60. That tells me something. If this was flipped, that would also tell me something. That would tell me that he's getting scoring chances, but he's maybe not hitting the net as much. He is, getting the chances, but not making them as dangerous as he should. Maybe if you believe in the player, you believe that he has the capability to kind of convert those scoring chances into actual expected goals a little bit more moving forward. And, you can kind of look at it that way. So I just think there's rarely a situation where more data is worse for evaluating players. So, now that I've taken an inordinate amount of time to just talk about the nitty gritty on this, I think I should probably leave it there. But yeah, I could talk about this stuff for days. Redman, hey Nate, rest of season projection for Quinn and Coyle. Yeah, tough ones for sure. Coyle, I've mentioned. Blake and I talked about him on the pod yesterday, so definitely go check that out if you haven't already. Coyle's doing a lot of stuff. Good individual expected goals for per 60 numbers, especially the last little bit here. Coyle could get traded. I think it's not out of the realm of possibility that he gets moved as and garners a ton of attention from contending teams. If the Blue Jackets are unable to get themselves really into the playoff race in any meaningful perspective, I think that that's probably the most likely scenario, right? Moving forward, the East is just such a logjam. The Jackets are the next team outside of the wild card race, but they're 6 points back. They have to just keep winning every single night to have a chance, basically. It's so hard to get there. And I don't know if I'm ready to just say that the Blue Jackets are that team that can do that. So, yeah, I think there's a pretty good chance. I don't know if it's 50-50, but a pretty good chance that Coyle is not on the Blue Jackets. And if he goes somewhere else, there's pretty much no way in my mind that he's going to get power play one anywhere else. So that would obviously be a huge hit. That being said, you picked up Coyle for nothing. Ride it while it's going good. If it turns sour, don't be hesitant to let it go. Same kind of goes for Jack Quinn. He's got 6 points in the last 5. I don't think he's got anything in this game here today. Let me double check that. The Sabres just scored their 4th in this game, and Jack Quinn did get an assist on it. Well, there you go. So Jack Quinn has another assist here tonight. 15 average time on ice is fine, but nothing to write home about. 75th and on ice expected goals for per 60. It's just kind of there. It's not bad. It's not great. It's just kind of there. I don't mind Jack Quinn. He is getting a look here on the top power play in this game, which is obviously pretty interesting for fantasy purposes. If he's able to hang on to that, then obviously I'm much more interested in Jack Quinn moving forward. So for that reason alone, it might be worth a look. But I don't know how sustainable I think that is. He's currently on an 18-goal, 52-point pace. To get there, he's had to rock a 76% IPP, which is obviously quite high. I don't know. Jury's still out for me with Jack Quinn. I think he can be a 50-ish points kind of streamer level player, but I don't know that he's a player that I'm going to bank on and say, yeah, he's definitely going to keep this up or even do a better rest of season. Want to see if he gets that power play one time and maintains it for any length of time, because obviously that would have big effect on his potential. Can you take a look at Trocheck under the hood, holding right now in hopes he gets moved to a new team? Trocheck, friend of the show, Vinny Tro, definitely somebody we don't mind taking a look at. 4 points in his last 5, 21 minutes average time on ice, roughly. Underlying numbers pretty terrible. Panarin goes away, and no surprise. They've been bad numbers on the season. He's still on a 70-point pace. I think that comes down. I think there are scenarios in which it gets better for Trocheck. And by better, I mean a better environment than he's currently in, with Panarin away from the team, not with Panarin on the team. There's been rumors about the Wild, right? Like, if he goes and he centers Kaprizov and Zuccarello for the rest of the season and plays on a top power play potentially, yeah, that's a pretty good situation, obviously. I'd be pretty excited about that if I was rostering Trocheck. But I think that's like the scenario, and there are a lot of other scenarios in which he's more of a 2C, more of a power play 2 guy. And I think that's more likely than him going to a spot where he's the guy. So yeah, I'm a little concerned about Trocheck for sure. I think it's pretty likely that he gets moved if the Rangers can find a suitable dance partner. Can we take a look at Chinikov? Could Misa be a sleeper later on this season? Thank you in advance. We could throw a couple more in here for sure. Misa's got 3 points in his last 5, 12 and a half minutes average time on ice. That's not going to cut it. The underlings are not good, all in the 200s. Misa, to me, I think it's possible. Obviously, big pedigree, big OHL numbers. We all know what the kid's capable of at lower levels. I think we really need to see him play some more significant minutes than 12 and a half minutes on ice before I'm going to get excited about it. Yeah, I just don't see why they would need to at this point. Like, they've got their power play set. They seem to like what they've got going on with their top six, and Misa doesn't really fit into that currently. And so they seem pretty content to let him sit in the bottom six, kind of learn the game from back there. And yeah, I just don't see the ceiling case for Misa this season. Obviously, things can change. Maybe an injury moves him up the lineup, whatever the case may be. There's definitely ways that changes. But yeah, I think it's a talented player. You're right to be interested, but unless the deployment changes significantly, don't think we can really rely on anything for fantasy there. Igor Chinnikov, 3 goals, 4 points in his last 5. He scored again tonight. I saw that before this game started. Anything else going on? A goal and an assist tonight, so he remains hot there for the Penguins. As I streamed Anthony Mantha, it was obviously Chinnikov that you had to roster, and should have known, I guess. Anyway, Chinnikov playing with Malkin and Novak at even strength. He's on the second power play unit. 59 shots per 60, 14th in individual scoring chances for per 60, but 124th in individual expected goals for per 60. So again, that's another scenario where the chances are there. He's got to do a little bit better job of converting on them, but the ones that he did hit the net with, he scored on. So that's a good sign for sure. 63rd in on ice expected goals for per 60. Can't say enough about the job that Dan Muse is doing in Pittsburgh with all these young players and kind of misfits like Anthony Mantha that were passed over in other spots. Unbelievable work. Probably my Jack Adams winner at this point if I had a vote. So Chinnikov, it's hard to say that this continues without actual top line or top power play time. At 15 minutes a night, I don't think it does. But yeah, it's a data point for sure. We've seen him have little streaks in the past. I would love to see this turn into a little bit longer of a streak where at least, even if the counting stats don't remain high, the underlying stats do. And if that were to happen, that would be pretty exciting for me in terms of projecting him moving forward. You know, Pittsburgh, their position in the standings, they're second in the Metro right now. If something changed there, I should have mentioned that about Columbus. Because they're in the Metro, they're 6 points back of the wild card spot, but they're only 4 points back of the last spot in the Metro. So it's a lot closer race in the Metro than it is actually for the last wild card spot because the Atlantic is so stacked. That all to say, if Pittsburgh continues the way they are, then Raquel and Russ probably stay on the team, and that means that Chinnikov doesn't get that look higher up the lineup for much time. And so that's probably what he would need to actually sustain fantasy relevance for the rest of the season. But again, good data points here. How many streaming spots do you like to hold? I've only got one while running 3D and a couple injured or out players coming back after the Olympics. I've been trying to make some 2-for-1 deals. No luck. One is okay. I would like to have 2. I've gone up to 3. I've gone up to 4 and then been hoping that some of the streamers turn into holds, just because of injuries usually is when that happens. So yeah, I think ideal probably around 2, plus or minus 1 or 2, 1 in either direction there, maybe, depending on your league. I'm kind of assuming a 4 ads per week kind of structure there. If you have more ads per week, then you want more streaming spots as a result. That just logically follows. So yeah, that's where I'm at on that. What's going on with Barzal? He looks crazy good lately. I did see that Barzal had an assist here earlier. I don't know if he's got any more. I haven't checked back in. No, just the 1 goal for the Islanders so far. Barzal has 3 goals, 5 points in the last 5, 17.5 minutes average time on ice. Underlying stuff, not special. Yeah, I think it's just a hot streak. He'd been cold. Now he's going hot. Not too much to see here, honestly. I don't think I'm changing my evaluation of Matthew Barzal based on what's happening at the moment. Who do you like as your last D between Klingberg, Parekh, Rinzel, or peripheral guy like Verhervery, McNabb, or Chernak? Cats with hits, blocks, plus minus. Oof. That is rough. It really depends what you need, right? Like, that that is exactly what you should be doing with your last D position, is looking at what you need on your team and trying to pick somebody up who is doing those things for you. So if you need, more power play points, then maybe Klingberg is that guy. If you're fine with plus minus, or you're punting plus minus, then you don't mind that Klingberg might not have a great plus minus, or Perek might not have a great plus minus, and you're willing to kind of take that swing there. So yeah, I think that kind of depends there. I like Klingberg there probably the most, as long as he's on the top power play. Yeah, as long as he's on the top power play, that's probably who I'm going with. So probably Klingberg, but I don't mind the bangers guys if that's what you need the most, in terms of you're losing those categories every week and you need to kind of make some adjustments that way. PB stars Hudson over Lacombe in a keep 3 format, points only. Yeah, I think you got to go Lane Hudson there. He's having a monumental season. Brady McLaren, 14-man ESPN regular points league. Should I drop Duclair for Buchnevich long term? Yes, I would probably do that. All right, back to the list. I'll try to sneak through this and close it out. We did have Perek and Barkov asked about. Obviously, they haven't played in the last little bit, so they don't show up in the sheet for me here. But Zane Perek coming back for Calgary. I don't know why they would call him up from the AHL to not play him. I think they're going to play him. I think they're going to play him on the top power play. Obviously, that hurts Uyghur. I don't know how good it can be in Calgary, but I am willing to find out, because I do believe that Zane Perek is a special level of talent. So that's where I'm at in terms of I just want to take shots on guys like this, right? I want to be in on players with big talent like Zane Perek has exhibited at like the World Juniors, for example. So yeah, that's where I'm at with him. And the other one was Barkov. If he's coming back, is he coming back? He, I guess, had started skating in a kind of limited capacity. I don't think that Barkov is very likely to come back, at least until the playoffs. But yeah, I mean, if you got an extra ad in a week and you can add him straight to IR or something like that, and he's sitting out there, you could do worse things with your ad. You can't possibly count on that. Matthew Tkachuk, 5 points in his last 5. He's 41st in shots per 60, 50th individual expected goals, 4 per 60. 59th in on-ice expected goals, 4 per 60. In this game here, he does not have a point among the Panthers' 3 goals. And 18 minutes average time on ice, which is good, not terrific. Playing on the top power play, playing with Bennett and Verhaeghe at even strengths. Yeah, I think Tkachuk can sustain probably a point per game pace here in this current setup. I don't know that he's got much more juice beyond that, unless the metrics really start to tick back up where it's more like in line with where he was. Like, he was one of the best on ice. Like, his on ice numbers were routinely like 1, 2, 3, like very much up there amongst all the NHL elite. And so if we start to see it trend back up that way, then I'd be more interested in projecting Tkachuk rest of the season to go above point per game pace. But yeah, I think solidly point per game pace is a reasonable expectation for Tkachuk rest of the season. All right, Kevin Fiala and Nikolai Ehlers, both just a couple assists in their last 5 games. 17 minutes, 15 seconds average time on ice for Fiala, 18 minutes for Ehlers. Underlying numbers, really bad for Fiala. 362 shots for 63, 45 individual expected goals, 4 per 61, 81 on ice expected goals, 4 per 60. Yeah, that is really tough stuff for a guy of Kevin Fiala's talent. He's still on the top power play. He was playing with Quinton Byfield and Andrei Kuzmenko in the last game. I don't know if he's like just outright quit on Jim Hiller. He hasn't been shy in the past about saying that he doesn't love the defensive style of hockey that Kings coaches have employed and kind of forced him into. So maybe he's sulking a bit. Maybe he's injured. There are various reasons why things like this can happen. It's a great player. I want to hold on. I want to believe in talent again here, but it is getting harder day by day. 58-point pace on the season. Rough stuff for Kevin Fiala. Yeah. I'm holding on, but it's getting harder too, for sure. Nikolai Ehlers, is 207 shots per 60, 208 individual expected goals for per 60, 185 and on ice expected goals for per 60. Yeah, Nikolai Ehlers, what can we say? I love the player. He's playing at even strength with Jordan Staal and Jordan Martinook. Like, how are we supposed to expect? How can we honestly expect anything here in terms of fantasy output? He's on the top power play in the last game. Yeah, that's nice. Where is he at? 61-point pace. Yeah, I think he can sustain 61-point pace, 65-point pace even at this level. I'm sad with Nikolai Ehlers is where I'm at because the potential for a 90-point season is so evidently there. And it just feels like it's never going to happen at this point. All right, Clayton Keller, 1 goal in his last 5. Blake and I talked about Keller and Schmaltz in the flagship show, so go back and check that out. I'm not too worried here. The power play needs to get better. That's a big chunk of what's going wrong for Keller's fantasy output this season. But he's still 29th in individual expected goals for on the season, but only has 24 goals to show for it. I think his goal scoring is going to come up. I think he should be at least a point per game player rest of season with headroom for more if the power play starts clicking again. Because Zibanejad, 2 goals, 4 points in his last 5, 22.5 minutes average time on ice, tons of minutes now. 86 shots per 60, 189 individual expected goals for per 60, 122 and on ice expected goals for per 60. I've been saying I don't think Zibanejad is going to go anywhere. I think the contract is probably too spicy for anyone to actually acquire unless the Rangers were to, actually take some part of that salary back on themselves, which I just feel like is pretty unlikely. So yeah, I think that Zibanejad probably just starts to trend down a little bit from this 34 goal, 78-point pace. Take Panarin off that top power play. It'll be obviously less effective without him there. I think he can have a solid rest of season, but it's going to be tough for him to have a great rest of season at this point. Matvei Michkov has 3 goals, 4 points his last 5, under 14 minutes average time on ice still, 8th in shots per 60, 34th individual expected goals for per 60, 13th in on ice expected goals for per 60, and yet we're still getting Rick Tocchet doing spots on local radio talking about how he showed up to camp out of shape. Please make it make sense. Why don't you just work with the player instead of basically tattling on him to your local media? Doesn't make any sense. Matvei Michkov, I fully believe in this player. I believe that this player has 90-plus point talent in the NHL. I just don't think it's ever going to come to fruition while Rick Tocchet is the coach there. Things could change. I just have zero confidence that they will, at least for this season. So for that reason, I'm mostly out on Michkov other than just as like a streamer in any given week. Morgan Geekie has 6 goals and 8 points in his last 5 games, and just turning back the clock to the earlier part of the season where things were going so well. It's like a tale of 3 seasons at this point for Morgan Geekie. It's a weird year for sure. Just under 19 minutes average time on ice. The average time on ice had really downturned previously, but they've been using him with Pastrnak at even strength, and I honestly think it's that simple. Like, Pastrnak is just that dude. I think that probably we get he's on a 48 goal, 79-point pace on the season. That's with a 25% shooting percentage, 15.6% on ice shooting percentage. I'm still going to default to saying like 40 goal, 70-point pace rest of season, even with playing with Pastrnak. But yeah, he could just stay hot all year. That's possible. All right, John Klingberg's the last one on the list. Then we'll go back to the comments to close things out. John Klingberg has 2 points only in his last 5 games, just under 19.5 or about 19.5 minutes average time on ice, rather. He's still 5th in shots per 60, 13th individual expected goals for per 60, 9th in on ice expected goals for per 60 in the last 5 games on the season, 54th in shots per 60, 22nd in on ice expected goals for per 60. I'm kind of into Klingberg still in terms of if I just look at the numbers and I like get rid of the name, I take away the name, then yeah, I think I'm still into Klingberg for fantasy purposes. But yeah, I'm not super confident that it continues. But as long as he's on the top power play and playing 20 minutes a night with Macklin Celebrini, I'm gonna have to be interested in what's going on there. So John Klingberg still a plenty rosterable fantasy defenseman in my eyes. All right, let's go back to the comments and close things out. Mitchell asks, thoughts on PLD's value when he returns from injury? Really tough to say when a player comes back from a big injury like this. Might take him a long time to ramp up. We see that pretty commonly with players who miss a lot of time. There's also a chance that he goes on the top power play and kind of crushes. There's definitely a wide range of outcomes, but yeah, I think most likely, most likely still he's somewhere around, what I projected him for at the beginning of the season, which was a 19 goal, 56 point pace. I think that's probably the most likely scenario when he comes back, but it could be better, it could be worse. There's definitely a wide range of variance around that because of the injury here and because the Capitals might just decide, hey, we need this guy actually to play more minutes. We need him to improve things, especially on that power play. And that's possible. Pretty interesting look, actually. I'd be very interested to see what PLD does when he gets back. How sustainable is Bouchard's offense? Is it worth trying to trade him right now at max value? You can, for sure. Like, he's on, I think, like an 89 point pace right now. That's probably the upper limit of what he's going to hit. So, yeah, you could try to sell him right now, but you better get a haul because he's still going to be a top 5 fantasy defenseman. And even if it's not quite at this level, it's going to be pretty close to it. Trying to package Barzal and Ehlers to open or streaming spot. Tried Jarvis, Raymond, Point, and Fox. Can you suggest anyone comparing average fantasy points per game? Standard Yahoo points, shots per point 8, no hits or blocks. Hurdle. Shots worth 0.8, so pretty good points weight on the shots there. Yeah, again, this is the hardest thing for me is to try to pull names out of my rear end like this. It's just not the way my brain works most of the time. So it's tough to do. Barzal and Ehlers. Ehlers is like a decent shooter, so you actually have to go get somebody who does stuff. Hurdle's not a bad shout. I'm trying to think of somebody, like even a Cutter Gauthier for the shots on goal there. I wouldn't mind. Yeah, something in that range for sure. Last one's, hello Nate, seems like the Blues are scoring again. Kyrou already rostered in my league, but do you think Buchnevich is worth an ad? Getting some really good deployment too. I do think Buchnevich is worth an ad at the moment. Yeah, things are going well for him. Still a talented player, just seems to really struggle with big ups and downs. Right now he's in an upswing. Roster him now, let him go when things turn south again. All right, last comment here. How do Evangelista and Byfield look under the hood? Would you drop either for Snuggerud? Let's see what we got. Luke Evangelista and Quentin Byfield. I can already tell you I don't love what Quentin Byfield's got going on under the hood. 367th in shots per 60, 331st in individual expected goals for per 60, 322nd in on-ice expected goals for per 60. You can drop Byfield at the beginning of the season for all I care. I have no interest in rostering Quentin Byfield. Luke Evangelista I still like. They have played around with his role a little bit more. He was taken off that top Ryan O'Reilly, Philip Forsberg line. And in the last game, they put Jonathan Marchessault on the top power play instead of him. And so that's obviously going to hamper his value. I still think as a player, like just in terms of what I think they're capable of this season in their current environments, I would still take Evangelista over Byfield though. So I would drop Byfield and I would absolutely pick up Snuggerud. Jimmy Snuggles for the win. All right. I think we have made it to the end of another Puzzling Players episode. Thanks everybody for being here. That is going to be all that I've got for this episode. Hopefully it brought you some value, helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today came from Natural Stat Trick and 18 Skaters. Many thanks to Matt Creamer for supplying music for the podcast. That's it, folks. Much love.